Last week on Business Boot Camp, Aaron from Arizona Yard Maintenance had almost $300,000 in debt, only a couple $1,000s in his bank account, and had a truck that was worth like $140,000. Today, though, I'm talking about the fact that if he's going to keep this equipment without selling off and paying off the debt, he's going to have to scale the business up very quickly. And if he's going to do that, he's going to need software to help him organize the business instead of just doing off the reminders app of his cell phone. So today, that's what the call is all about. There's a full extended version of the consulting call. If you'd like to see the entire episode, check out the description. There's a link down there for last week's episode. But this is the full consulting call with Aaron from Arizona Yard Maintenance. Here we go.
Can you hear me?
I can. How you doing?
Good. I was signed in a few minutes ago, but it's kind of glitching out. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, no worries. You're good. You're good. How was the week?
Good. Yeah.
Mostly this time of the year, are you guys focusing on projects more, or what kind of percentage of the work is still recurring?
Most of it is recurring. I would say about 25, maybe 30% or so is like once a year calls, or like once in a lifetime calls. That's not recurring, so.
And you kind of include the tree maintenance stuff in with the recurring side because you have a lot of that, right?
I don't. So no. So recurring is, I would consider just like monthly yard maintenance, weekly maintenance, biweekly, jobs that are already on the schedule. And then I fill those gaps in with like, first time callers, basically, people are just calling, for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about, and this is just a kind of mental gymnastics, have you ever thought about trying to just preserve that 70 to 80% and letting go of a lot of the bigger equipment for the project side of things? Because that's where a lot of the debt is right now.
Yeah, I don't want to do that because I feel like I make more money. That's why I picked up all that bigger equipment, is because I know it's going to be profitable. I'm confident in my ability to make money. I know, like right now it's a little bit of a struggle. But I know that I have the ability to make sales, to have, a lot of money in my account. You just got to work through it. That's how I look at it.
Okay. And so was it mostly this year where you started focusing because you had the equipment to do those larger projects then, right? And that's really where the growth has been, like the extra 20, 30% of the revenue?
So I've always done trees, and I've always done maintenance. But I used to have to rent that equipment versus owning it. I never really rented a chipper though. But as far as like skid steers, boom lifts, I don't have an excavator, but I still rent that, when I need one. But yeah, so it's basically saving me money right now instead of, I've always ran my business very tight though. So it's almost like I'm forced to hustle, forced to go out and make money. And I'm just constantly reinvesting into the business. And I knew this was going to be a challenge getting all this equipment, but I feel like I'm confident enough that if I need to, I can go door to door and, make some sales to pay my bills.
Okay. All right. Okay, cool. So I know we had talked about Jobber and the guy that said you'd tried it out a little bit. I know it would be a big transition to move away from the reminders app. What's sort of your fear in doing that? Obviously it's a big change. But what's sort of your fear? Because my concern is that the business can't grow much more with that being the bottleneck for everything. And I'm actually really interested to see even next week when you're gone, how things continue to operate using when your manager takes over, not having the reminders app, or potentially there is. So maybe educate me a little bit.
Okay. So, with that, I think it's just the initial fears of change, and that I would like, is yourself to be able to understand the picture before I take your advice. But I know that you're smart. You know what you're doing. You've really delved into this business, more than I have. So with that being said, I looked into Jobber, and I decided to go ahead and get Jobber. I just wanted to look into it first. So I did make a video. I don't know if you watched the video, or your team got back to you about it, but I was hesitant, and I know it's a smart move to do something, to take another step, not just stay where I'm at. So I looked into Jobber and I felt like it was a good fit. So I actually signed up for a year. So I have that now, and then I have a meeting next week on Monday with Jobber to kind of implement things. So yeah, I've been having an issue with QuickBooks for like the past 5 months, 6 months or so. Some of the invoices, they say that they're sent, but they actually don't get sent. So I definitely need to switch, because that's not okay. It's, just, I need to be able to collect my money. So I think Jobber will help out with that.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a transition. It'll be very, very difficult because right now the reminders app is so simple and you understand it like the back of your hand. Here's where my concern is and why I push the Jobber side. Because in my mind, there's two directions you take the business. One, you scale it up and use all this equipment to its full capacity. So it's not sitting in the yard for 4 days out of the week. It's actually being used all the time. And that is, you got to grow that business to 150,000+ per month in revenue. And I think you have the capabilities as you are in terms of your confidence to do that. If you're going to do that route, that's where I see you have to have a software, because you're going to need someone else to start handling a lot of the stuff that you're doing currently, like scheduling, dispatching, invoicing. You're not going to be able to handle it all at 150,000+ a month in revenue. And that's the size of business I feel you're going to need to grow to make it worthwhile to have all this debt and this large equipment. So that's the route one. Route two is you stay on the very simplified route, but you get rid of all the debt structure and you focus on simple services and then just raise your prices, right? And I think that's the route you don't want to go, because you're confident in selling the larger projects, and there's definitely money to be had there. I think it's just a matter of, if you're going to decide to go that route, and it's very evident you're going to have to grow the business in order for it to make sense financially, that's when I'm like, okay, there's just no way you are going to be able to handle all the scheduling, all the estimates, all of the invoicing, and all the admin side when the business literally needs to triple, because you've bought the equipment to basically triple the business, right? And that's why you're hitting this cash crunch, because you've invested so much for the upfront of what you're going to grow the business into. Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You've obviously bought into the vision and you know where you can take it. We've got to get there pretty quickly though. And in my mind, you're going to have to eventually hand things off that are not sales related to somebody else and pay them $20 an hour, $18 an hour, whatever. And yes, it's going to be a few $1,000s a month at least for them just to handle some of the emails, the calls, etc., the scheduling. And they're not going to be able to do that in the reminders app, because them learning that. Go ahead.
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm hoping that within the next couple of weeks, I can transition all of my schedule that's in the reminders app and transfer everything that's in QuickBooks to Jobber, and then start implementing Jobber. I also looked into P4P. I don't think it's a wise move right now to do both of them at the same time.
Agreed, 100%.
I need to get some of that data as far as how long the guys are spending on jobs.
Yep.
And that way I'm just not bombarded, stressed.
100% agree.
So
yeah, I almost didn't have them send it to you today, because when they said that you were trying Jobber, I'm like, there's no reason to be trying to do two at the same time. I already know you're stretched thin, right?
Yeah.
And that's where my concern is in terms of choosing the route that you're going to go with the business. Because you could keep doing what you're doing, but you'd have to simplify services in order to scale it while just running off your reminders app. Or B, you need software because you're going to need to be able to hand that off to somebody else. Because if you're going to go to 150,000 a month in revenue, you will be the full-time salesperson. That will be your full-time gig.
Yeah. So can Jobber do that, or do I need to hire someone else? Because right now next week, so when I go to the Equipment Expo, what I'm going to do is just create the schedule the night before. I'm going to send it over to my girlfriend. She lives with me, and then she's going to set the schedule out for the guys. I could also just send the schedule to my foreman too, but I like to have it in paper. So that's how I'm going to handle next week. And then that's how I've been doing it, except I've been putting out the schedule when I'm not working with them.
And it's been
But
working great. My concern is when that triples, because in order for the business to be profitable using our current financial structure, we do need a triple. And I'm fully confident you can do that 100%. My
yeah,
concern though is all the bottleneck coming back to you setting the schedule, you sending the invoices, and this very system that is based on you is very risky. And you're going to have to hire someone else and hand it over to someone. And it'll be much easier for them to learn Jobber, where there's support and there is a system for doing things, and it's much more automated versus so manual that to you is simple, but it's mostly all because you have it in your head, and that's
where do
very
I,
difficult to pass along.
yeah, where do I find that person? Where do you recommend me finding a person that's knowledgeable in that?
Like, I think it's probably going to kind of happen organically next spring rush when you really start to scale up again, because you're going to feel this pressure of like, either I'm answering emails and phone calls or I'm out in the field selling. Well, if we're going to scale to 150 a month, we've got to be out in the field selling. Right. And so it's going to feel pretty natural when you're like, I cannot handle this anymore. I have to hire somebody. And I think what I'd be looking first is potentially someone that you do know, just because from a trust perspective, that first office person is a position you do need to trust them.
Yeah,
And I don't mind having you, even if you paid them $4,000 or $5,000 by the time you have to pay their taxes and paid time off and have an office for them and all the rest of it. Let's say it's 5,000 a month. But if that allows us to go from 50, 60,000 a month right now in revenue to 120, 130, that's where they'll make their difference. Right.
yeah,
And them sitting behind an office or behind a computer, they'll be able to understand Jobber and the workflow and putting things on a calendar and invoices that automatically combine at the end of the month. Whereas right now, a lot of it really comes down to you knowing which
yeah,
jobs, where you're manually putting jobs from week to week. That
yes,
process is not scalable. And honestly, when I look at a business doing 100,000+ a month in revenue, it's almost scary because the business owner literally got hit by a bus or broke their leg or was incapacitated for a day or two, the business would fall apart. And
yeah,
that's the part where we're trying to avoid by having software and then someone to handle the admin side so that you can go sell. And that's where your strongest point is, in my opinion, even just based on a few hours with you,
yeah.
you can sell like a machine. So
Cool.
everything else needs to be outsourced for someone that can handle emails and calls and all the rest of it.
Okay. Would you have you any thoughts about like the people in India or virtual, like, or like I've heard that they work for extremely, like $5 an hour or something. What are your thoughts about that? Hiring someone like that?
Totally. They're going to be really good at remedial tasks, things like copy, paste, send me reports, those sort of things. When you start having them communicate with your customers, you got to ask yourself, are you losing out on a $20,000 project because they couldn't understand the person on the phone? Right. So those are the things you start kind of balancing out. And the fact of the matter is, someone that is paying $5 an hour is probably going to take longer for you to manage. And if you're spending half your day just managing them, that's where I'm like, again, the whole reason we're having them is so that you can go sell. Like, you need to
Could,
be able to train them up and then leave them alone.
could Jill's office handle that task with
It's
Jobber?
definitely be a place to start off with. I know they integrate well with Jobber. It's something that could get you started. They're pretty expensive. Like, they're $2 plus a minute. And so, but it'd be a good place to start handing things off, in my opinion, and kind of force you into the Jobber role. Right. And then what would happen is, as your bill with them would trickle up, you could probably afford to hire someone full time next spring rush.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to think about, the commitment that I have to invest in someone for them to understand, and then, worried that they're just going to leave after
Right.
spending time,
Yeah.
investing in them. So,
And ultimately, though, that's the risk that will have to happen if you're going to grow to 100,000+ a month in
yeah,
revenue, right? Because if you don't have that dependency, otherwise the dependency is the fact that it's all in your head and you have to do the schedule every night. And if you have a night where you're just out, like off, like you're like, I cannot handle this, or you're stressed out, like that's what gets scary at that size of company, because
yeah,
everything is bottlenecked at you.
for sure. I've made a few mistakes, which, I hate when that happens, but in the schedule, like as it started to ramp up, I have made a few mistakes in the schedule, and I get hard on myself, and I'm like, this is why I can't be distracted, the people around me, because especially with the reminders app, it's a lot to handle. It's like back and forth, like, and then my working memory is like 6 different things, like in the schedule, invoicing, all that. So
like when it comes to recurring work, you should set them up one time at the beginning of the year on a recurring schedule and never think about that again. It should just be a matter of it's set for the entire year, and you or your office person or your crew member shows up, and it's literally for the next 3 weeks, exactly what your schedule is. And it's repeating automatically. There's no more manual, like I'm going to drag it 2 weeks, or I'm going to create 2 reminders for this month. That is something that, again, all of that time right now that you're spending is time that should be spent selling. And I truly believe that's $100 per hour task that you're not doing that, and instead doing a $15 or $20 hour task, which is literally copying and pasting reminders.
Okay. Cool.
Like even if we took Jobber off the table, I'd still be saying like, we got to somehow get rid of these lower level tasks so you can focus on selling, because at this size of company and the amount of debt that we have, we've got to scale up quickly.
Okay. I'm not sure if do we have enough time? I got another question for you.
Go for it.
Okay. So, regarding videos, I've seen a lot of guys have success in doing daily vlogs, marketing themselves on Instagram, Facebook, all that. I've thought about doing that same thing with YouTube, but one thing that I feared is being too open and like talking about pricing and then seeing my customers watch that, or me talking about like customer problems. So I wasn't sure whether or not I should restrict kind of what I say, like watch what I say on the videos, or just openly like be myself. These are my true thoughts, and then post it. I
think right now, if I was you, I'd be spending all time focusing on the business. That's where the best return on your time is going to be. And if you want to make videos because it's just a creative outlet, I'd be doing it in a way where there's not much editing, whether that be you just hopping out, making one quick clip while you're out on a job site, etc. But you don't want to spend a lot of time on it right now. You have a business that's going to be could easily do over $1 million in revenue next year. That's where your best time is spent. If you took off on YouTube, you'd be lucky to make $20,000 on ad revenue next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the business has got to be to the point where it's just like pumping out money. Then you have plenty of options, right? You got time to be able to spend on editing a video or creatively coming up with ideas. And if that's something you just want to express, for now, I just try to be as low production as possible. And then in terms of how much you share, my main thing is protect the employees. Because as soon as you start bringing them into it and start saying airing their dirty laundry, that's when drama starts happening. And again, affecting the business. And that's what you don't want.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, brother. So in terms of next week, I think, if you start working on Jobber and you have that call with them, that'd be great. And just starting to see what the benefits, obviously it's going to be a big transition, but just start working that direction. Because like, I really need you to be able to scale the business, and any time that's not selling right now is time wasted. Honestly, we've got to scale it up because you have all this fixed assets of trucks, equipment that literally could sustain a $1.5 million business. And so we really got to get to that level.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I'm going to make it happen. Definitely. I mean, cause I've already invested into it. So I got to do it,
and you're great at sales. Like, I truly believe what you said. And I was like, if you went and knocked on doors, you'd sell. So like every minute that you're moving reminders around or taking calls or emails is literally $15 to $20 tasks at the risk of you literally selling massive jobs or many, many jobs in the future. And I truly believe like you knocking on doors, you're going to sell a ton. So we just gotta get you doing that.
Most definitely. Okay.
All right, brother.
So I'll see you next week.
You got it. Take care, Aaron. Have a great weekend.
You too. See you, man.
All right. Bye.